Hi guys, Jay here from borntoproduce.com, and we're now on to lesson 4 of this brand new Deep House tutorial for 2019. Okay, so I want to layer up this bass line. This is what we got so far, by the way, in case you missed last lesson. So that's all very well, but let's start layering up this bass line, make it a bit more funky. So plus, add an instrument. I'm going to layer it up with Retrolog, which comes with most versions of Cubase, apart from Elements, I think. If you're using Elements, then maybe just try to find a similar sound in Halion, something like that, or any synth that you may have access to. What I'm going to do here is, well, first of all, just copy down the MIDI. So we're going to use the same MIDI from the bass line and just copy that down. Let's do a bit of naming while we're here. So this is going to be bass top layer, because we're going to have a sub layer as well. Shift and enter just to rename that part there. So now they're not all called bass, and then it doesn't get confusing later on. Let's make that a light green as well to go with the other one. Okay, so now we need to change the sound, obviously, otherwise we're just going to get the sawtooth wave, which is going to sound horrible. Also, it's out of key. Now the reason that is because I sampled the original bass, this one here, from a different synth, and I just happened to sample it starting with D, but when you bring it into Cubase it automatically puts it on C, so that's the reason why, or the trigger key I should say is on C, but that's not a C note, that's actually a D note. Slightly confusing, I know, but just believe me when I'm saying that this starts on D, not C. But what we need to do on this one, because we are actually triggering a synth as opposed to a sample this time, we need to pop this down to the actual note that I want to play, which is going to be D. So sorry, pop it up to D. My snap is not on, so that's why it's not quite going. So I know this is a horrible sound, but I just want to check that it's in the right key. And it certainly is. So now let's open up Retrolog and find a decent sound. Now I know what I'm going to use because I have made this track before, but I've basically used a preset that I personally made myself, and it's available in our BTP Retrolog 1 presets pack. Now it's called Robo ARP. It is actually an ARP, but all I'm going to do is come in here to the ARP section and turn off the ARP because I actually like the sound. Let's just have a listen to it. It's mega loud, of course, so let's just turn that down. Let's come to audio fader, and let's just solo it actually, just so you can hear what it sounds like. Let's just turn off the delay a little bit. Okay, might need to EQ that as well, but we'll come to that in a second. Let's just see what it's like at the moment. Okay, let's just duplicate that over so we haven't got to keep going back to the start. Okay, so let's conflicting a little bit with the bottom layer, so let's just take off the low end of this top layer. We don't need it anyway, plus it will help it sit more nicely with the bottom layer. Okay, and just make that a bit steeper like we normally do. Okay, let's just make this sound a little bit less plucky. So in other words, we'll increase the sustain and the release. Just solo that. So a touch more reverb, I think. And what we'll do, we'll only bring this second layer in the second half. So let's just holding down shift while I go up and down on my mouse wheel to scroll from left to right. Just going to duplicate these over, highlight them all, Control D. But this is the one with the slightly different ending, so I'm just going to take that one out and duplicate this one over. So now the ending on the original bass is only on the very fourth block. So let's just see what happens. Let's just see what this sounds like when we go from the single bass to the double bass layer. Turn off the loop, otherwise it's going to loop around at 8. Okay, I like it, but I'm just going to EQ it because it's not cutting through quite enough. So let's activate an EQ point like we did in the last, or one of the last lessons. Just got to set my loop again, and a quick way to do this, by the way, is to just highlight the blocks that you want to loop around and press Alt and P, or hold down Alt or Option and press P. So we're just trying to find a nice part of this synth to make it cut through. That's all I'm doing here. Okay, we'll just reduce those cues a little bit. So before, that's with EQ. That's quite nice, I think. We've got an extra note on this layer which we don't need. It's not that one, it's actually this one here. Just also going to have a look at the filter envelope, which this kind of section here is kind of good for sculpting the pluckiness of the sound. So I'm going to solo it so you can hear it a bit better. The sustain is particularly good for creating pluckiness. And decay. Incidentally, we do have a course on Retrolog, by the way, so if you want to know what the hell I'm doing here, I have done a course on this, and it explains everything from the real basics right through to the advanced stuff as well, and it will explain exactly what all these filters do, and we also go through and create several sort of presets together. Let's blend this in, see whether we want a plucky sound or not. Without the layer. I actually want all of these to be slightly shorter, so I'm going to highlight them all with Control A, turn off the snap, and just bring them in a little bit. Let's have a listen. Yeah, and these ones as well, I think. Just making them a bit snappier, this second layer, obviously not the lower layer. Okay, so let's have a listen to the transition again between the one layer and the two layer. Okay, that's fine. That's a nice top layer we've got there. And that complements that lower level quite nicely. So now what I'm going to do, as I've mentioned in other lessons, is I'm now going to set up a sidechain. So we can dip these two basses when the kick hits, and that will create a, well, it does two things. It will create a nice sort of pumping effect, which is just a nice sounding effect, but also it has the function of making way for the kick drum because it's dipping the volume slightly of the two basses when the kick plays. So let's do that now. We can trigger the sidechain with the normal kick if we want to, but the kick has to be playing for the trigger to happen. Now there may be a gap in the song, like the breakdown, whatever, where you still want the synths or the bass to be pumping, but the kick is not playing. So therefore, an even better way of doing it is to set up a second kick channel called Kick Ghost. So I'm just going to duplicate this track. And just going to call it Kick Ghost so we don't get confused. I'm going to make this a slightly different colour, just maybe orange or something. And I'm also going to change the routing of this because I don't want this kick to play. At the moment we'll have two kicks booming with each other as playing at the same time. So just going to go to F3, my mixer, and just turn off, go to routing and turn off where it says stereo out. Go to no bus. So there's no output. And what we'll do is we'll trigger that a different way into the compressor. So we're running out of space here. Let's just turn off the lower zone. What we need to do is right click, add a group track. This will become clear in a second, I promise. This is going to be my sidechain group. Sidechain group. And this is going to have the compressor on it. The sidechain compressor. So we go to inserts. We'll just take the ordinary compressor from Cubase. Activate the sidechain. Little down arrow. We want to add the sidechain input. So what triggers the compressor to work? So basically what we're doing here is, rather than the compressor, well, a compressor in itself just turns things down. So the threshold, for example, when the signal comes in and it goes over the threshold, which in this case is -22.9, it will start turning down the signal automatically by this ratio here. So 2:1 or 3:1 or 4:1, whatever you set here. That's basically what a compressor does, just in case you're new to this. It saves you having to go up and down with the faders all the time, adjusting the volume. But what we're doing in this case is using the compressor in a slightly different way. Rather the compressor being triggered by the audio going over the threshold, we're actually going to set the trigger to an external source, which is called the sidechain, and the external source is going to be the Kick Ghost. So this compressor is only going to wake up or work, if you like, once it receives a signal from the Kick Ghost. Now the settings we want are going to be roughly around 3:1, quick attack, no hold, and quick release, something like that. And threshold maybe down about -30. These are just rough settings just to get the thing started. And I'm just going to go up to Kick Ghost and show you that on the audio sends, Cubase says in the Cubase 10, it's automatically set us up a send level to the sidechain input of the compressor. That is what happens in Cubase 10. It's just a bit quicker than what it was before. Okay, so let me just show you that working. Let's go to the compressor again on the sidechain group. And at the moment we've still got nothing triggering it because we need to send whatever it is we want to be compressed or dipped or sidechained, whatever you want to call it. So it's going to be, at the moment it's going to be these two channels here, but it's also in the future it's going to be synths and pads and things like that. So we need to send the output of these channels to that group rather than the stereo out. So as you can see, bass and bass top layer are currently going to the main output, which is here, this one here. So let's actually just change that to the output to the group, sidechain group that is. And now we should have something. So let's go to the compressor again. There you go. And you should be able to hear that. It's on extreme settings at the moment, so you can hear the pumping effect. Listen to the both bass lines and see how they're pumping when the kick plays. Okay, so that's on extreme settings at the moment. So that's how you set up a sidechain. So let's just adjust these settings a little bit. For more pump, you want to have a quick release. Let's just take down the threshold so we don't affect the signal quite so much. So no pumping. So just adjust the threshold as to how much pumping you want, and the ratio as well. Just make sure that groups a different color, just so it's easier for me to see when we start getting lots and lots and lots of tracks in this project. So I hope that's been useful for you. That's quite a common effect these days. In the next lesson, we're going to take this one step further and sidechain and automate the reverb on the bass. So we'll get the reverb pumping as well. So that's going to be really, really great lesson as well. So guys, you've come to the end of the first 4 free lessons. I really hope you've enjoyed them. This course is 29 lessons long, so I really hope you join me for the remainder of the lessons and finish making this track with me. In the next few lessons, we'll be creating the sub bass, the pumping reverb sidechain, electric piano, creating a radio-friendly arrangement, comping and processing a full vocal, mixing and mastering, and a whole load more. So if you want to continue, click the link below. But if you don't, no worries at all. I hope you've enjoyed the 4 free lessons. All the best. See you later.